Good morning, everyone. My name is Stan Pearson, and I'm a member of the solutions team here at K-Kura. And this morning I'm joined by Rishi Kular, who is a product manager on our mobile product team. And we're going to take you through the new Relativity mobile this morning. So let's start by making sure that everybody can see and hear our screen. We got lots of yeses. Thank you. Somebody said we had an echo. Thank you for pointing that out. Rishi and I are sitting next to each other, so when one of us is talking, we'll try and mute for the other one, and that should take care of the echo. All right. So we're going to go through just the agenda, what we're going to go over with you this morning. First of all, we're going to start with talking about relativity binders, what we've learned from relativity binders and how that learning developed into our new vision for the mobile app. Then Rishi's going to take you through a great demonstration of Relativity's mobile application. We're going to talk about some of the configuration and security features, and then what's on the roadmap, which is, of course, very exciting. We're going to have time for questions at the end. I think we should have plenty of time for some good questions at the end. We'll try to get everything answered for you today as much as we possibly can. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Rishi to kick us off.
Thank you, Stan. So we've had relativity binders out in the field, and the number one question that attorneys ask when they see binders is, can I code on this? So every attorney that sees binders, can I code on this, and will my decisions sync to relativity? And so unfortunately the answer to that was no. And so I just wanted to summarize the top three binders learnings that we've had. So attorneys need to be able to code on mobile, and all work product needs to sync back to relativity. So binders was conceived as this digital briefcase, and you had access to documents offline, but all the work product sort of followed you. It didn't feed back into the relativity to the database. Administration needs to be dead simple. So with binders, you had to build a binder by converting a saved search into PDFs, and then you had to create binders users and tie binders users to that binder. But it needs to be simpler. It needs to be simpler than that. Also, folks that had binders would ask for, they wanted to put 1,000 documents in their binder, and when they do so, then they'd want to be able to chop it up with folders and views, and basically a way to organize all of the data. And Relativity is already really good at this, so mobile should reflect that. We recently conducted a mobility and litigation research questionnaire, and we basically interviewed 25 partners at law firms around the U.S., and we learned a lot. So one partner said you have to be mobile, you have to be able to do this job anywhere at any time. All 25 partners said it's essential that they have mobile access to their work. And when asked how frequently they use mobile in their jobs, all partners said every day. And so taking a step back, we're building this new product, Relativity's mobile app, and what's the vision for it? And pretty simple: deliver a high-quality user experience for Relativity on any device. And just unpacking this a bit, high quality. So we aren't building a mobile website version of Relativity. We're building a native app because we believe that provides a faster, slicker, order of magnitude better user experience than mobile web does. It also gives you access to Touch ID, offline, and other capabilities from the device itself. When we say for Relativity, we're not going to bring every single Relativity workflow to mobile, only the ones that make sense. And we're starting out with the basic coding workflow for an attorney. Not a contract reviewer, but an associate or a partner that's looking to code documents and have access to their key information on mobile. When we say any device, we may not support every single device, but we've built this new product in a cross-platform way so that when it comes time to support Android or Microsoft Surface products, it won't be so onerous to do so, although the first release is iPad, though we will be releasing for iPhones later this year. So with that, I just wanted to jump into a demo of the software. So here I've opened up the Relativity app, and the first thing I'm seeing is the option to use Touch ID to get into Relativity. Instead of entering a passcode, you can configure Touch ID within the app to use your thumb. So I'm going to tap Use Touch ID and just use my thumb to get in here. And the first screen I'm seeing is just entering my instance URL. And I'm going to go ahead and enter this mobile demo instance URL. Once I do that, as expected, I see a login screen. So I'm going to enter in my credentials. And one thing to note here is that whatever configurations you have on this login screen, such as two-factor authentication, we will support. So they'll work on mobile. Going to tap Login. And now, as I might expect, I just see a list of workspaces that I have in this instance, and I'm just going to tap into the workspace that I want to be working in. And here it's just loaded all the documents in my workspace. And so if I scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll notice at the bottom we have a loading wheel because we support infinite scroll. So I don't have to be tapping paging buttons in order to access all of my documents. And you'll notice as I'm scrolling, the top fields are staying sticky. So it's a nice experience that I can see what my column headers are while scrolling. I could also pull to refresh this data if I wanted to, common mobile experience. And I could also scroll to the right to see additional fields. And so you'll see here that the control number is sort of staying sticky as I scroll to the left and right. And what we're going for here is that we understand that views and relativity can get complex. And we want to be able to show you all of your data, but just do so in a mobile-friendly way. So we're not going to compromise in terms of number of fields in a view, for example, but we are going to do our best on the user experience side to make the design great for mobile. Above the document list, I see that I have a list of all of my views from the workspace, so I can toggle between different views. On the left, I have my folders from the workspace, so whatever folders I have, and then also saved searches. So here, I'm going to tap into this second saved search folder, and I see that there's a saved search in there and another saved search folder, so I'm going to expand that JPEG docs folder. And now I'm going to expand the Doc Viewer Docs folder, and you'll see that there's a bit of a peek and shift because now I can scroll to the left to see those original saved searches. And essentially what we're going for here is just a mobile-friendly version of the browser tree. So I'm going to go ahead and tap into a document. And now you'll see on the left we have the viewer mode, image mode, and production sets modes. So unlike relativity binders, we're just sort of displaying the document here as if you were accessing it on the web. So there's no extra process to convert documents to be viewable on mobile. I can view documents as I would in Relativity. So we also support landscape mode throughout the app, so I can turn my iPad and it'll still work well. And if you'll notice in the top right-hand corner, we have this coding button. So I'm going to go ahead and tap this coding button so you can see how we might code this document. So here it's loaded my layout that I have associated with this document, and at the top you'll see we have support for tabs. So I can scroll to the left if I've created tabs in my layout. And above at the very top, we have a way to toggle between different layouts that I have in the workspace. I'm just going to go ahead and code this document. I'm going to say that it needs further review. I'm going to leave a comment. And I'm a bit lazy, so instead of typing, I'm going to go ahead and use my, my microphone icon in the keyboard and dictate my note. A partner should look at this. I'm not sure whether or not it is privileged. And I'll see that it got my note perfectly. And I've noticed that the dictation is very accurate. And I think attorneys that we've shown this to sort of like this feature because it sort of saves time and you can just sort of dictate your keynotes into the layout. Here I'm going to expand my issue coding. So this is sort of your multi-choice fields displayed on mobile, and I can code a bunch of issues here. We also support any field type you have in Relativity. So for example, I'm going to show you a multi-object field here with users. So I could assign users to this and add a user. And now I'm just going to go ahead and tap Save. So I'll see that it saved my coding decisions pretty quickly, and now I could just go back into Relativity, and so it was that first document that I had coded, and if I just go ahead and refresh this workspace, I should see that all of my coding decisions show up here on that document. So I see all of those issues that I coded, that it needs further review, and a partner should look at this. So this is exciting. This is the first time we have that unified experience between Relativity and mobile. So what are the use cases that we sort of envision for this app? And I touched on this a bit earlier, but yeah, we don't foresee contract review rooms of like 100 contract attorneys sort of using their iPads instead of the desktop. Really, we envision this for outside counsel and inside counsel that may be familiar with Relativity, but sort of want a lightweight version of it on their iPads to access key documents for some of those sharp end of the spear litigation activities. Hot document review, for example, the few hundred documents that may get blown up while at trial. So witness depo prep, so whether or not to include a document in the witness kit and sort of familiarizing yourself with that evidence on your way to the deposition. Privilege review, oftentimes in cases there are several tough calls that get bubbled up to senior attorneys. What a great use case to review those on the go. QC review, so you're in Relativity at work doing QC review, maybe spread out between several attorneys. When you head home and you're on the couch and you see your iPad on the coffee table, why not pick up where you left off? Security and configuration. So I did want to touch briefly on sort of how you get set up with mobile. And so it does require the February update version of Relativity 9.5 at a minimum. But if you have a version February 9.5 or later, all you have to do is download the app from the App Store and sort of input that instance in the instance URL page that I had shown you. There's no need to manually install any Relativity application. This sort of happens behind the scenes for all of your workspaces. So all Relativity permissions in the workspace extend to mobile, so you don't have to be setting up a bunch of different permissions. If I don't have permission to see a safe search in Relativity, I won't see that safe search on mobile either. But if you didn't want certain groups in your workspace to see workspaces, we have a new permission on the workspace object, whether or not it's visible to that group on mobile. It's toggled on by default, so the groups will see it by default, but if you wanted to remove that visibility, you could do so pretty easily. I had mentioned this briefly when I showed you the login page on mobile, but we do support two-factor authentication and any other configurations you have on your login page. We have Touch ID on the passcode screen instead of typing in a pesky passcode every time. And we also support Mobile Iron and AirWatch. So AirWatch is coming soon at the end of this month, but Mobile Iron is supported today. These are really popular mobile device management companies, and if they are implemented at your firm, that won't be a blocker for rolling out mobile. So what's on the near-term roadmap? I briefly wanted to touch on some things that we're tackling currently and sort of in the near future. I showed you the document list. You can filter and sort on the document list today, but you can't run a DT search. So you can't enter DT search terms and sort of run that search. Currently working on that, targeting the end of this month to ship DT search on the document list. Searching a document within the viewer, just a simple search bar to get key terms and toggle between previous and next, hitting those terms in the viewer. iPhone support, so we do have that on the roadmap for this year. We've been getting a lot of requests for surprisingly wanting to do this on phones. I'm sorry, not surprisingly, given the larger screen sizes now of phones, iPhones, and also just wanting to access your key documents, whether you're on their iPad or just on your go at wherever you may be. Tapping a link to a saved search opens the app. How cool would it be if you're checking your email on your mobile device on your phone and you see that a link came into a saved search, you tap the saved search, it opens the Relativity app, and you have access to it right away. In-app notifications from admins. So we also see mobile as a potential hub for notifications from Relativity. So whether a new saved search was added or even just a custom message that a lit support professional wants to send to the attorney, notifications will pop up in the app. What's on the horizon? So a little bit longer term roadmap. Support for dashboards. So Relativity is getting really good at having widgets and creating these customizable dashboards. So having those visualizations and dashboards on mobile makes a lot of sense. Email thread visualization. So recently we shipped really awesome enhancements to how we visualize email threads and having that same capability on mobile. Admin functionality. So we often hear from lit support pros that excuse me, why can't I reset a password or administer a user group for my phone? And that is something that we are going to build. So you will be able to administer Relativity from your phone. Another example of a good use case, sort of an off-hours use case, is getting having a command center for your queues, agents, and jobs to be able to see what's stuck or start or restart agents or queues or jobs. Fact Manager and transcripts integrations. So also the product manager for Fact Manager and transcripts, and we're making a lot of exciting enhancements to these products. And the types of attorneys that are doing case strategy are the types of attorneys that also care a lot about mobile access to their key information. So it makes perfect sense to integrate the two. And then more devices and operating systems. So we do have Android and Surface products on the roadmap for the mobile product. So the app is available. We did launch, so go ahead and download the app today. And even if you don't have Relativity 9.5 yet, you can still play with a demo instance of Relativity that I showed you. So, here's the app. If you just search for Relativity in the App Store, you should see our app to download. And once you download the app, you'll set up your passcode, and then you'll see this instance URL screen. So just enter mobile-demo.kickhero.com. And then for your username, just use mobile@demo.com, and the password is just mobile1bang. And the workspace is mobile demo. So even if you don't have 9.5, you can still play around with the app and sort of nudge your admin to upgrade to 9.5, or if you do have a February update version of 9.5 or later, you can be coding documents on your iPad today. So highly recommend checking it out. And so now we just wanted to cover some questions from the field.
All right, thanks so much, Rishi. We have had some fantastic questions, and I think one question that came in from a few people, I think you said this, but just to confirm, the app doesn't cost anything.
Correct. The app is free with your Relativity license.
Okay, excellent. So let's get to some of your questions. Here's question number one. Just to confirm, if users have to log in with RSA authentication, they'll be able to use fingerprint then followed by RSA authentication?
Correct. So the fingerprint is just the app in lieu of an app passcode. So you can either have an app passcode or your fingerprint, but that's not actually logging you into Relativity. Once you enter your instance URL, you'll see the login page, and then we do also support two-factor RSA at that time.
All right, thank you. Just give me 1 second to get to the next question here. All right, how about audit? Are mobile functions audited, and how do you view those?
So everything on mobile is audited, showing up in the history tab, similar to relativity audits, actions in relativity. Um, the actions that a user takes on mobile, while audited, show up as just relativity actions. So in relativity, they viewed a document. In relativity, they coded a document, but it doesn't signify that it happened on mobile yet. It does show up in the audit trail, though.
All right, next question is, when do you perceive this will be released for Android?
So we're sort of in the process of still shifting priorities of how we're going to support Android. I know that for this year you can expect iPhone support, but it may not be until 2018 until we support Android. But that, like I said, is a bit in flux. It may get bumped in priority to this year as well.
Okay, great. How about offline? Is there an offline mode? Is there any way to do anything with binders when you're offline?
So with this new Relativity app, everything that I demoed for you did require a network connection. So we were showing you all documents from the workspace, all saved searches and folders, and so yes, it was needing a network connection to ping Relativity. But we do have offline capabilities on the near-term roadmap for this year. So you will be able to take a saved search or a slew of documents offline, and once you take those offline, you'll be able to read those documents and flag them to code when you get back online. We may not have robust like coding while offline because a lot of our customers have mentioned that it might be a headache with respect to conflict resolution. So just as an example, if I'm an attorney and I'm offline coding documents and my colleague is at the office online coding documents, when I get back online, it's a bit of a mess in terms of resolving the conflicts. Like, is it based on a permission or some hierarchy in terms of that? So long story short, offline on the roadmap, but the first iteration will probably be read-only with the option to sort of flag documents to code when you get back online.
And what about binders? Are you planning to retire binders officially?
The plan is to retire binders. We will do that later in this year, but we'll have like a sort of a robust communication plan around that we'll send to our customers about sort of how you can access that data. All of it should be accessible with the new Relativity app, given that binders are often created from saved searches. And in the new mobile app, you just open it and see all of the saved searches you have been added to. So you will be able to access all of your data, and sort of once we support offline, um, we think that the new app is sort of all that binders could do, but much more. So it may not make sense to have both in the market. So we do plan to retire binders later this year.
Okay. So someone asked that, noticed that you were probably scrolling with your finger while using mobile. Can you touch and hold with one finger, or do you have two-finger capability, like zooming by separating fingers?
You can zoom in on documents. You can scroll with one or many fingers. Touch and hold. We do have some functionality on the roadmap for touch and hold. So the peek and pop functionality, for example, fields on a list, the column, for example, we do have it on the roadmap to be able to sort of like touch and hold that in order to like make that the sticky column instead of the first control number. So I really like where the question's going in terms of utilizing the device and sort of the touch and feel of native apps, and definitely have some of that, more of that on the roadmap.
Excellent. Is there a related items pane?
So we don't have a related items pane right now, but we have that on the roadmap as well. Alongside the coding button in the viewer, there's going to be a related items button, and it's going to slide out a pane that's roughly double the size of your layout pane that will have your full lists that you can filter on that have your related items.
Great. And there were a few questions about images. I think when you had an image on the screen, the viewers weren't seeing the entire image. So somebody asked if that would be just a matter of making it a full screen, or if your image is larger for some reason than the screen you're viewing, can you just have to scroll to see the rest of the image?
I think that might have been just something off with that particular document, and I was actually showing the viewer mode, which was the HTML5 version of the native. In the image mode, we will show the entire page of the image without needing to scroll. Although you can toggle between different pages pretty easily. But you could if we didn't show the full image, it would be a defect in my mind, and we would work to relentlessly to solve it, but you could go into the full screen mode, which is a button in the top left, to get that full page, and that will definitely work too.
All right, and how about the UI or the classic?
So this is a completely different UI. It's mobile. It's not fluid or classic. I would think of it as mobile. So there's going to be a lot of capabilities on it that are different than fluid, that are different than classic, because we really want to cater the experience to the mobile use case. So for example, infinite scroll is something you don't have on fluid or classic. Scrolling and having columns stay sticky is not something you have on classic. Pull to refresh is another example, and so we're sort of we're not thinking of it in terms of fluid or classic, but just really catering in on the mobile cases. And that said, we do want to sort of align with the future direction of fluid. So for example, dashboards is something that we want to support as we have new and exciting capabilities coming out in fluid. To the extent that we can support them on mobile in a smart way, that's sort of the direction we're going to go in.
All right. And someone asked about user status. In the user status feature, will you be able to identify if someone's using mobile or desktop relativity?
On the user status, let's take that as a follow-up. I'm not 100%. I forget the whether it does designate as mobile on the user status. So we'll take that one as a follow-up and send that answer out.
All right. Let me scroll down a little bit here for questions. Let's see what else we have. Can you batch documents and have the batches viewable for review in the app?
So yes, you can, because we support views, and the batches are essentially views for the end user. But currently in the app with this early version, you can't from mobile check in a batch or check out a batch. The attorney would have to do that on the web, but that is something definitely on the roadmap to check in or check out a batch from mobile. But today, since we do have support for views, you could view your batch.
All right. Here's another question about the Android version. Do you plan to have Touch ID available for the Android version as well?
Yeah, I think so. When we get to Android, so we haven't fully flushed out all the requirements yet for Android, but I think it would make a lot of sense to support Touch ID when we go Android.
Android was a very popular question topic, Rishi. All right, so how about multi-login? Will multi-login be available? So you can be in the case from a laptop, but also logged into the app.
Yes, multi-login will be available, so you can be logged in on the web and in the app.
All right, excellent. Just to clarify that a little bit more, is that available now, or is that something that's coming?
That's available now. So when I showed you that demo, I was in the app connected to that mobile demo instance, but then I popped open the workspace on the web and I was logged in as the same user. So that's certainly available today.
Great. Someone else asked, can you redact or highlight images?
So not today. This first version, I know a lot of these answers are, yeah, it's on the roadmap, but really this first version was centered around the sort of basic coding workflow, and we wanted to make sure we really nailed that in terms of supporting all of the field types in Relativity, encoding the document and having it sync to Relativity. But it makes perfect sense to be able to highlight and redact on the image as well. And yes, something we do have on the roadmap for this product.
All right. Next question. A couple of questions on redacting. Actually, I think that was answered. Can you save multiple instances in the list? I'm not sure I understand the question. Maybe you do.
Maybe the question is, when you're entering your instance URL, could we have like a drop-down of either recently used instance URLs or favorites? And today we don't support that, but something that we definitely have also on the near-term roadmap to sort of have like a favorites list of instance URLs, so you don't have to enter it in every time. I think that might be the question. If not, feel free to clarify.
Yeah, that sounds good. How about bandwidth? Are there bandwidth requirements? What mobile data would mobile data suffice, or do you actually need Wi-Fi?
I don't think Wi-Fi is a requirement as long as you have a network connection. We're kind of in the process of doing some more performance testing around bandwidth requirements, but we don't have anything published on. Maybe I'll double check our documentation. If you search Relativity's mobile app, we may have published some requirements there. I think there's a minimum memory requirement, but as far as bandwidth, we haven't published any numbers regarding that yet.
Okay, and a related question to that then would be, can you connect through Citrix using the mobile app?
I believe you can, although not 100% on that. Would have to follow up on that one. It's sort of, I guess a follow-up question on my end was, does this sort of, well, we'll just follow up on that one.
You talked about dashboards and that's coming. Someone asked for the timeline. Do you have that in a specific timeline at this time?
So as far as like the priorities, the first priority for us is to like the biggest one we have coming up is the save search, clicking on a save search, opening it up in the app, and then also iPhone support and the notifications. After that, we'll probably target some of the dashboard work, but that may not get started until either the end of this year or early next year.
All right. And before we leave, we could do it now or at the end if you want, to put up the URL for the demo instance that you mentioned people could get into.
Yep, so here's the URL. If you download the app and connect this mobile-demo.kkira.com in here, and the credentials are mobile@demo.com, password mobile1bang.
Right, and just so everyone remembers, this deck will be sent after the webinar, so you'll have that information in the deck. Although I don't think that login information was in the deck; it was just in the demo.
No, it was in the deck.
All right, great. Let's see. How about mass actions? I'm not sure if you mentioned that in the roadmap, Rishi, but a couple of people were asking about whether mass actions will be available.
Yeah, so I didn't list that. There's a couple other, several other items that we didn't just we sort of took the highlights on the near-term roadmap, but yes, mass actions. So I guess I'll just cover a couple of things I didn't touch on in the roadmap slides. So mass actions, annotations, redactions, related items pane, markup, so toggling between markup sets and then also persistent highlights. Those are all things that are also on the roadmap and sort of putting them in the bucket of, uh, you know, review essentials to sort of meet some of the requirements that we're hearing from attorneys. But yeah, mass edits definitely a part of that group.
All right, excellent. So this is back to the offline discussion, or being able to work offline. I'm not sure we totally answered this one. If you are doing some work offline, whatever capability you have to do offline, then will that sync back up when you are connected to the internet?
So the thought, there's a couple ideas we currently have with offline and what happens. So um, one idea is to, while offline, be able to flag a document to sort of remind you to code it when you get back online. And when you get back online, that flag isn't something that will go to Relativity. It'll sort of live on the device. Like, hey, in my flagged area, I see that these documents, I should code these as responsive or something. But then there's also another idea that maybe we could allow attorneys to code long text fields, so like leave comments while offline, and sort of avoid that conflict by just when they come back online, we would just append that to whatever whatever comment was added there while they were offline. So in that case, when they were online, the comment would feed back into Relativity when they came back online.
Yeah, that sounds great. Here's a question from someone who says they are a managed service client, and I assume that means using Relativity through one of our partners. So would it be an issue to download the app? Would that just be a matter of whether they're available to work in different locations through that service provider?
I don't think it would be an issue as far as the app working if the instances were on Relativity 9.5. Everything would work, I believe, as expected, as long as it was a correct instance URL. But I would just ping them. We're definitely in close communication with our partners about mobile and how best to support it and provide their provide their input. So think it should work, but just reach out to your partner.
All right. Is it mandatory to configure mobile for BIS Orange certificate?
At this time, I don't believe it is mandatory, but I could follow up just to make sure on that.
All right. Is there any specific setup required in the environment for people to be able to use mobile?
No specific setup required in the environment. As mentioned, there is a Relativity application that gets installed sort of behind the scenes at the instance level, so it goes to all workspaces. The only sort of environmental thing, if you would call it environmental, is the permission of whether or not the workspace is visible to mobile users. and that's sort of toggled on by default, so it is visible by default, so that even that sort of doesn't require intervention. And that was sort of a big thing when we were designing this, to sort of minimize the work you need to do in order to set it up and support it.
All right, how about compatible document types for the viewer? Is it whatever you can see in your current relativity instance? Those are the document types that are available in the viewer?
Yeah, we'll support all file types that the Relativity viewer supports on mobile. Yeah.
All right. I know we've talked a lot about whether the app is available for Android, but just to clarify, is it available only for the iPad and not the iPhone?
Correct. Correct. So the app that's currently available in the App Store is only iPad, and then later this year we're gonna release that for iPhone, and then Android sort of comes down the line after we support iPhone. We likely probably won't prioritize Android tablets, given that we're hearing most folks on the tablet side are using iPads, but when we support phones, obviously, it makes a lot of sense to support Android phones.
All right. This is a confirmation. So the views that are available in your desktop instance, those are the same views available on the mobile app, correct? And no limitations on what views are available.
Correct. So any view you have available in Relativity will be available on mobile.
Is there any limitation at all to how many people can be logged in at once to the mobile app?
No, no limitation on that we're aware of.
I think you did talk about creating saved searches in your roadmap discussion. So can you clarify that just a little bit? Rishi, I know that DT search is coming up. So what will be available as far as creating a saved search at this point?
Sure. So what's available now is just sort of tapping on a saved search to run it. But in mobile today, you can't create a saved search. And in the future, when we touch on some of those admin capabilities, I think creating and editing saved searches is one of the top ones in that list, because we're hearing that it's sort of a mixed bag with attorneys whether whether or not they create saved searches, and so when we release that, we're not only solving a problem for admins, but also for those attorneys that do create saved searches. So certainly on the roadmap, but we're probably going to hold off on that until we hit some of those admin capabilities.
Okay, is the app only available in the U.S. App Store?
No, so we did toggle this on for international app stores as well.
Okay, that's good to know. Can you save different, or can you save different instance URLs to the app? Some people work in more than one at the same time.
So currently the way the app works is you enter your passcode or use Touch ID, and then there's sort of just like a text box for you to enter your instance URL. So in that URL, in that text box, you can enter whatever instance URL you want to be working in. But to sort of like toggle between another instance URL, another instance, you would have to like log out and go back to the instance URL page and enter that new instance. But we do also have it on the roadmap to sort of piggyback off of the work that we're doing at the workspace portal in Relativity 1 to sort of make it easier to toggle between instances in the future.
And a question here about different instances of relativity. I know on our documentation page we have a great chart telling what's available, what features for what instance of relativity, but someone specifically asked about using 9.2, so is there any instance limitation for the mobile app?
Yes, so the mobile app requires the February update of version of 9.5. So any pre-9.5 instances will not work with mobile.
All right. A different mobile device that we have not talked about is BlackBerry. Is there any support for BlackBerry specifically? This one asks about BlackBerry Work.
So we don't have BlackBerry on the roadmap today. That may change in the future, but sort of the order of priority for us right now is iPad, iPhone, Android phone, and Microsoft Surface products.
All right, a couple of questions on security and permissions. One is there any identification that a user is on mobile? I think you talked about that a little bit before, and how can you limit the user layouts so they don't display for mobile users? My understanding is that you get whatever permissions you have in Relativity, so you can't necessarily limit the what the users can see. Then the other one is, can you limit users to only be able to use Relativity when on Wi-Fi in the mobile app?
So correct. You can't sort of limit the layouts or views that a user can see on mobile. If they can access Relativity on the web and access all of their views and layouts, they can access all of those views and layouts in the mobile app as well. And then the second question was, can you limit can you require that they use Wi-Fi in order to use mobile? And today, no. There's no toggle to sort of set that requirement.
This question is support for Windows AD authentication versus forms and password authentication. Is there support for that?
Yes, so the engineering team told me that 80 is supported and works on mobile.
Okay. Next question is, if I understand it correctly, document conversions take place directly from the app, or must they be made from the standard instance access prior to viewing images, viewer, etc.?
So viewing images on mobile is sort of almost the same as if you were on the web. So Relativity is handling it. So like if you tap the image viewer mode, we're actually displaying a web view of the viewer in Relativity. We're just stripping out everything, all the toolbars, and we're showing the document. So it's literally the same as if you were accessing it on the web.
All right, excellent. And just to go back a little bit to admin actions, I know a lot of people on this call are certainly concerned about when they can do more admin actions, and we've talked about that. So can you give a little more insight into how you intend to roll those out, like what things are at the top of the priority list for admin actions and when some of those might start to be seen?
Sure. So the way we have it prioritized right now is we have administering users and groups at the top. You know, essentially like resetting passwords and other common off-hour activities with respect to like users and groups as a top priority. Second top priority we've heard is that sort of command center of queues, agents, and jobs, and to sort of like be able to check in on things that are stuck and just restart them right from mobile. Administering saved searches, so creating and editing saved searches. What else do we have on the list? As far as the order, this is I can't recall whether the order is exact at this point, but some other items are administering like fields and choices and persistent highlights and rebuilding TT search indexes and search term reports. Those are also items on the roadmap for admin capabilities.
All right, that's great. Question about the native viewer. How does the native render in the mobile app?
So like the viewer mode, the HTML5 version of the native renders well. So very similar to the way it renders on the web. There's a different, like the one difference is that paging happens with a swipe as opposed to scroll down. But we do have it on the roadmap to sort of like improve the user experience of viewing the HTML5 version of the native on mobile. But just to be clear too, I don't think I mentioned this, but the actual native, so in the web, you can click that native radio button and then you get a download of the native file. We don't have that capability on mobile, but on the roadmap we do have it such that if you have Microsoft Excel iPad app installed, for example, we could potentially, if you hit the native radio button, boot you over to the Microsoft Excel app in order to view that natively. But today, that's a sort of a difference between the web and mobile.
All right, I think the answer to this question right now is no, but can you process or image, can you kick off an image job? Like, we have image on the fly, of course, in Relativity. Is there that capability to kick that off from the mobile app or OCR?
No, so we don't have that capability to sort of kick off those jobs on mobile. But I guess as a follow-up, do you see that as something high priority for something that we should prioritize when we hit that those admin capabilities in the mobile app?
I think I would like to see. This is something that I think people would like, Rishi, because especially if we're talking about the use case being for the partner or the case team, really starting to get ready. If they run across a document that hasn't yet been imaged, it's something, if they already have the permission to do it in Relativity, then I think it's something that could certainly be useful. Yeah. All right, let's see what else we have. We're getting close on time. We'll answer as many questions as we can here. Where do you set the Relativity mobile security permissions, i.e. object or other security? I think you touched on this briefly, but maybe go back, talk about that for just a second.
Sure. So there there really is only one mobile specific permission. Otherwise, there's really no administration to do. So if a user doesn't have permission to something in Relativity, they're not going to see it on mobile. But the one Relativity permission that we did add was on the workspace object in the permissions module. If you there's a new checkbox underneath the header workspace and visible on mobile. It has been added there and it's checked by default. But if you uncheck it and sort of add groups to that workspace, those groups will not be able to view those workspaces won't show up in their list on mobile.
All right. Is there anything that happens in the app that does not sync back to the main database?
No. So all coding decisions that you can possibly make in the app will definitely be synced back to Relativity.
We talked about DT search. There were a couple other questions about that, but you did talk about DT search, and that's coming out very soon. The ability to be able to run DT searches. Here's one I don't think we covered. In the coding layout for a single choice field with a lot of choices, do you have the ability to filter down and choose the choice?
So if I understand correctly, we have like a multi-choice field, like issues, for example, and many choices. Can you sort of like search to find your choice quickly? And no, we don't have that capability today.
Well, here's somebody that's seeing the future that you're seeing. In the near future, I like that word near. This mobile app should be as close to using the desktop for the user. Right, that's what you're going for eventually, to get as close as you can to what the user sees on the desktop.
Yeah, I think so. We're going to, the vision is to deliver a high quality experience for Relativity on any device. But that said, we may not bring every single functionality in Relativity to mobile. It's sort of like a case-by-case basis of whether like users want to be doing that on mobile versus desktop. There's some things that a user may not just want to do on mobile, and they're just going to go to the desktop anyways to do that. But that said, I'm sort of like in the camp of our iPads are workhorses now, and if I can do like expense reporting and customer relationship management and complex task management on mobile, I should be able to work in Relativity on mobile as well. So in the future, we're going to constantly be bringing more Relativity functionality to mobile, but I think we're going to focus on the use cases and the personas, the folks that are actually using it, on whether for some functionality they want something lightweight and simple, or do they want that full capability as they have on the desktop. So I think it's going to be a deliberate choice every step of the way.
All right, this is an interesting one that I don't think that I've heard the request before. Will there be a preview mode to show the mobile? Since it's different from the classic or fluid UI, is there a way to check what the user's seeing without using the iPad?
No, there's not a preview mode, and I'm assuming like sort of a preview mode of while you're on the web to sort of see what the user sees on mobile. But if you wanted to preview it, you could just log into the app on mobile and hit that instance, and sort of before you could just toggle the workspaces off for that user on mobile, and then hop in there and just sort of play around with it on mobile before you roll it out. I think that would be the smartest way to do it.
One more here. Are users on mobile still limited to logins from trusted IP addresses?
Yes. So unfortunately, that is the case. Trusted IPs are in effect, but one thing we do have on the roadmap is a sort of a new section in the when you're creating a user called something along the lines of trusted devices. And if you enter the Apple ID of your iPad in there, and there is a trusted IP address, the Apple ID will take precedence, so that even if the user is at home in a different IP address, if they have a trusted device such as the iPad, they will still be able to access Relativity. So we see that as highly important to support. So something on the roadmap for this year.
All right. Well, thank you all very, very much. I think we got to almost all the questions. If there were a couple and we didn't get to yours, we'll try to follow up with you offline. And there were a few other follow-ups that Rishi talked about that he wasn't quite sure and wanted to double check. So we will double check on those for you as well. I'm going to hand it back over to Rishi. I think there are a couple more slides he has. That was it. Just a thank you slide. All right, so great. Well, thank you again, everyone, for attending. This recording is going to be available before too long on our website. And of course, we have quite a bit of documentation around mobile, and we always welcome your suggestions through the Relativity community as well. So have a great day, everyone.